In this video, we're going to be looking at the QAR strategy, which stands for the question and answer relationship, and it's a comprehension strategy which is going to help us with when we're reading a text and then answering questions about that. So the success criteria for this lesson is that we need to be able to obviously define what the QAR strategy means, so know what it is by the end of it. And there's 4 parts to this. So there's 4 methods used within the strategy. There's the right there method, the think and search, the author and you, and the on my own. So we're going to go through each of those 4 sections just briefly. You need to be able to explain it and then perform it, and then you're going to do some practice in our class tomorrow. So the QAR strategy helps us with this. It helps us understand how and where we find answers when using comprehension. So when we're reading a text and we have questions based on that, where you've had them with your NAPLAN or with other tests that we do, how we can actually find the answer, where we can find it, and how we can answer it. And there's 2 parts. So the first answer, usually, as we're pretty good with, is that if most of the time the answer is usually in the book. Okay, so you're going to be able to find the answer in the book. So once you've read the text, you can actually, there's usually a question, what is so-and-so's name? You can find that in the book. Okay, so obviously the answers are coming from the book. But the second part to the QAR strategy, and one that we're not so good at, is finding answers using our head, or using in your head method. Okay, so sometimes the author asks questions, or there are questions that we need to answer. And it's not necessarily in the book. We also have to apply our prior knowledge and understanding with the book, and also with our own understanding within our head. So the way that this is broken up is into 2 parts. So as we just saw, there are 2 categories of where we find our answer. So in the book and then in your head. And then within each of those 2 categories, there are 2 skills each. So these are the 4 parts that we're going to be looking at, which we saw at the success criteria at the start. Okay. So in the book method, there are 2 ways that we find answers. The one that we are really good at is the right there, where you can just point to the answer using the text. The other one is a think and search, where the answer might be over a number of different parts or over different sentences. So we have to sort of look through the book and find these parts. Now the in your head part, where the answer might be in your head, is there are another 2 methods here. And this is called the author and you. And the way that we do this is that the author, or there's questions where you need to relate your understanding to what the author is reading, okay? And we get the clues, as it says here, from the author, and we use our own knowledge. The second part to the in your head method is the on your own, okay? This is where you don't necessarily need the understanding from the book. It's just you're using your inference and you're putting your own prior knowledge to that. So we're going to quickly look through all 4 of these briefly, and then I'm going to give you an example towards the end. So the first one, which is the in the book method, is the right there. Now this, as I said, this one's very easy. We're really good at this. We've practiced this a lot throughout our schooling time, but it's also important that we understand how and why we do this. So the right there method is where the answer is in one sentence of the text. Answers are usually one word or a short phrase. Okay, and the types of questions that you get usually are who is, where is, what is, the simple basic questions. So usually when you read a text, it's usually the first few questions that you get that are usually the right there method. So you might be reading Black Snake, and it might say, who is the main character in this story? Obviously you can just point to it right there and say the main character is Ned Kelly because it says so right here in the book. Okay, that's an easy method. So to find the answer using this strategy, you need to be able to reread the text. You've got to be able to scan the text to make sure that you've got the right point, and then you've got to look for keywords. So I like to think of the right there method as simply as if you can point to the answer in a text, you're using the right there method. Now the next part within the book strategy as well is the think and search. So this one's a bit more complex, and you need to look over different parts of the book. So the think and search method is the answer is found in several parts of the text, okay? And answers are usually short. Again, we're sort of good with this, but this is sort of asking us a bit more detail of where you need to find different answers or examples. So you might find questions like, for what reason? So, for what reason did so-and-so do this? And you say, oh, I did it for this, and then, oh, I did it for this later on. You're going to use that method there. So you also might find questions that says, how did, or why was, what caused. So as you can see, just from looking at these types of questions, you can understand how it's happened over a number of different evidence points, and you need to be able to find that. So again, the way that we find that answer is that we reread or skim the text. You look for important related information, so again, sort of similar to keywords, and then you summarize a part of the text. So this think and search method is we're using over a range of different parts. It might be in different sentences, might be in different paragraphs. You need to make sure that you can identify this one. So the next part is we're going to look at the methods for the in your head, and these are ones that we're not necessarily good at, and we need to understand how we use this. So the author in you method is simply that. The answer is not directly in the text. Okay, and I get this a lot. So some boys are doing their work and they say, there might be a question saying, would you do this? And if they can't find in the text, then they're lost. So you need to understand how we need to apply our own understanding into these comprehension questions. So the answer is not directly in the text. The answer comes from fitting together clues from the text and from the reader's prior knowledge. So you're combining what the author is writing about and what you know, and that's where you're going to get your answer from. So the answers are longer. This is where you start to use your description and you need to explain your answers. So the types of questions you might find would be, would you, or which character, and do you agree with? So it's asking for your own knowledge and also applying what the author is telling you. So to find the answer, you need to reread the text. You need to think about what you already know and what the author says. And finally, you need to predict the author's intent. And this is called inferencing. You need to be able to inference or understand or infer what you think the author is trying to get across. So this is the author in you method. This is one that we really struggle with and one we'll be practicing a fair bit. The final one is, I suppose, is quite simple, and it's the on your own method. So this is where you're just using your own understanding to answer particular comprehension questions. So again, because it's in your head, the answer is not in the text. The answers come from readers' prior knowledge, and the answers require readers to make some type of judgment. Okay, and again, the answers are longer. So the types of questions you get, or do you know, have you ever, would you ever? So you're just using your own knowledge to answer the questions. So to find the answer, think about what you already know, make connections with what you have read before and what you already know. Okay, so these four methods here, we've just gone through them briefly, but we're going to quickly practice them. I'm going to give you an example on actual text. Okay, so I've got a text here, we're going to read through it, and then we're going to answer these four questions here on the side. I'll move my picture so we can see question 4 soon, and then we'll be able to give you an example of what they actually are. So it says, Sam has lived in Marytown. I can know already that I might be able to highlight some important information. He's lived in Marytown his entire life. However, tomorrow, Sam and his family would be moving 100 miles away to Rosslare. Sam hated the idea of having to move. Okay, that might be important. Hated the idea of moving. He would be leaving behind his best friend, Pat, and the local football team. He would have played on for the last 2 years, and to make matters worse, he was moving on his birthday. Sam would be 13 tomorrow. He was going to be a teenager. He wanted to spend the day with his friends, not watching his house being packed up and put in a van. He thought that moving was a horrible way to spend his birthday. So thought moving was a horrible way to spend his birthday. What about a party? What about spending the day with his friends? What about what he wanted? That was just the problem. No one ever asked Sam what he wanted. Okay, so we've read the text now, and we're going to see if we can apply these 4 strategies up here. I'll put my face up there. Okay, question 1. What is the name of the town where Sam and his family are moving? Okay, now I know that this will probably be a right there strategy. It's asking me a simple question, what is the name of the town? I should be able to point to this directly in the text, and I can see here, what is the name of the town where Sam and his family are moving? I need to reread, scan, and see if I can find it. So he's lived in Marytown, however tomorrow and his family will be moving. Okay, I've found a keyword here, moving and moving, 100 miles away to Rosslare. Okay, I'm going to circle that. That's my answer right there. I can point to it right in the text. I don't need to use my inference. I can just point to it right there. So this is the right there strategy. Alright, question 2. Why was Sam not looking forward to the next day? Okay, so again, this is a think and search. I'm going to need to reread, and there's going to be different answers throughout the paragraph which I'll be able to find. So why was Sam not looking forward to the next day? So Sam hated the idea of having to move. Why? Because he would be leaving behind his best friend. There's one part to the answer, Pat, and his local football team he played on for the last years. And to make matter worse, he was moving on his birthday. Okay, so he'll be 13 tomorrow. So here, as you can see here, I've got a number of different answers, all within different parts of the paragraph. So this is obviously think and search. Both these questions 1 and 2 are done in the book. Alright, question 3. What might Sam do to make moving to a new town easier for him? Okay, now what they're doing here is they're asking, we've had to read the text, but it's also asking us what might he do, so we need to put our prior knowledge into this question. So this is obviously going to be in your head. And this is going to be author in you, because I'm going to read the text and the author is asking me to put my own prior knowledge onto this. So what might Sam do to make moving to a new town easier? Oh, and this is where we can use our own inference or understanding. He might send letters to his friends. He might look for a new football team. Okay, we've had to read the text and understand how we can apply our own knowledge onto this. So this is obviously author in you. And finally, for question 4, in what ways can moving to a new house and to a new town be exciting? Okay, so obviously this is the on your own. Now I don't need to have necessarily read the text. I could probably answer this without having read the text, just using my own prior knowledge. So on your own. Okay, in what ways can moving to a new house and a new town be exciting? Obviously, I can put my own knowledge. I might have had experience with moving. It might be exciting. I might look for new friends, etc. I can answer this simply on your own. So, as you can see here, they've got all 4 methods that I've just been able to apply, and we always get these types of questions. So we're going to keep practicing these in our video and in our lessons over the next few weeks. So make sure you can understand what each 4 of these are, and we'll be able to go from there.